That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The British Constitution provides that taxation and representation shall go together. Therefore, women taxpayers are entitled to vote.
I have a dream today. Let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true.
Welcome to Only Human, episode 25. Episode 25, hard to believe. Here's where we continue to chart the untamed wilderness of human performance. Today, we're edging closer to that frontier, where order seems to clash with chaos. But remember, order and chaos coexist, just in ways we may not yet understand. So we need to learn to embrace the apparent chaotic while simultaneously applying our own set of tools to form some sort of order to it, and at the right time and at the right places. That's tricky stuff indeed. So last episode, we set the stage for recognizing this unconventional ally, chaos itself. Today, we're not only going to wade in deeper, but we're going to learn to dance safely in the eye of the storm. So let's begin like we do all the time with our Blue Thread proverb of the week. And today's is number 15. The fourth dimension is the first decision. By the fourth dimension, of course, we mean time. And what this means for us is that as we get closer to the boundaries between our normal, structured, ordered world and complexity and chaos on the other end, we need to realize that we need to be able to control the time that we have to manage the uncertainty. And I want to go a little bit deeper into this with a story. Ivan Lester McGuire was 35 years old, and he was a veteran of over 800 skydives when he fell to his death on April 6, 1988 in Lewisburg, North Carolina, because he forgot to put on his parachute. He was in a rush to film other jumpers. He was hoping to launch a new career as a skydiving photographer. And remember back in 1988, helmet-mounted GoPros were not quite to the state they are today. And so as he was putting on all of his camera equipment, he began to film the other two jumpers as they were preparing. And all of a sudden, they were over the drop zone and running behind. The two jumpers he was going to film were tandem jumping, and he was just finishing filming them getting ready, and he knew he needed to leave immediately after them to get good close-ups as they descended and deployed their chute. So this created a very exciting moment for him in a very chaotic environment. And I'm not sure he managed that fourth dimension too well, because when the team jumped, he went just a second later. He got really good footage, and his video of this tragedy is still out there online today. And on it, the last words you can hear from him were, "Oh my God, no." Tragic story for sure, but what does this tell us about riding that razor's edge of chaos and order, complexity and stability? James Gleick is a historian of science and technology, and he's the author of a book called Chaos, Making a New Science. And he tells us in this very short, magnificent quote, strange things happen near the boundaries. At the boundary between order and chaos, this couldn't be more true or more important. Obviously, jumping out of an airplane is something we refer to as a one-way decision gate, right? You can't jump back in. There are other things, pulling a trigger on a gun, making a decision to get in a car when maybe you've had a couple too many drinks. It's a one-way gate that once you've decided to do it, there's really no turning back. And so at that moment, we need to have certain things, and we do have them. Most every high-risk industry, including, by the way, parachuting, has checklists and memory aids, right? And it's at these very moments, at the boundary layers of order and complexity, of stability and chaos, that we need to make time to use these tools. So today what I want to do is I want to go into 4 ways that we can make managing this boundary practical for us in our day-to-day lives. So number 1, I call riding the razor's edge, embracing flexibility, fluidity, and adaptability. So, in the relentless, I don't know what we want to call it, dance of life, where change seems to be the only constant, rigid plans and brittle expectations, they shatter. And those that understand this tend to get ahead, right? Looking back into history, I look at a couple of guys. One was Genghis Khan, whose empire's vastness was matched only by its wild diversity because he conquered a lot of different types of people. And he had an art which he called fluid command. Khan's genius lay not in his conquest or his strategy or tactics, but in his ability to assimilate and adapt to the strengths of others. I mean, he used Chinese siege technology. He modified the Persian administrative skills and the old Mongol postal system for communications across his empire. Basically, he learned as he conquered. And it's this blend of flexibility, fluid adaptability, that turned the Mongols into an unstoppable force in their day. You could say the same thing for others. Alexander the Great, certainly one of them. So what does this mean for our personal quest? I think it translates into an openness to pivot without warning, right? All of a sudden things are different and we're ready to go a different direction. It means we need to embrace the unfamiliar with curiosity instead of fear, right? It's about making adaptability our default setting, right? We're not going to get married to the plan, no matter how good the plan is. Where we meet change with enthusiasm instead of resistance, right? And that's tough to do. But it's also about recognizing the dangers in this region and making sure we recognize those one-way decision gates so we can avoid jumping out of airplanes without parachutes or their metaphorical equivalent in our own lives. So here's a couple of practical steps that we can do to embrace this sort of fluid mindset. And I kind of do all of these pretty much every week. The first one is a morning reflection. I start out every morning with a few minutes of what I might need to adapt or what I might want to adapt or change in my daily routine. Just this morning, I got up and I was looking at some Coursera courses. I quickly decided that I was going to enroll my entire company in these generative AI courses so we could at least be speaking the same language. That came out of my morning reflection. Number 2, call it skill swapping. At least once a month, I try to do something that I normally do in one way, another way, right? Swap a skill you're comfortable with for something maybe completely outside of your comfort zone. Could be anything. Maybe it's learning to play an instrument, a new language, trying your hand at fly tying. I'm a writer, and I obviously spend a lot of time trying to make my writing efficient and powerful. And I used to work exclusively from outlines. And then during one of these skill swap exercises, I decided to write free flow, where I just start writing and let the story tell itself. I found out that was much better for me in terms of content and creation. And so now I write and just let the stories unfold, right? Whether it's nonfiction or fiction or even these podcasts. So number 3, this is kind of a wonky term, but build in some new feedback loops, right? What I mean by that is create and seek feedback from family, friends, coworkers, colleagues, where you can routinely and regularly exchange constructive critiques on each other's work or habits, focusing on areas that you might do differently, that you might be able to improve on. There's even some tech apps out there that can help you with this as well. And the last one, number 4, comes straight out of small business entrepreneurship. Fail fast and fail often. The path of innovation is paved with failures, right? Each one's a stepping stone, kind of disguised as a stumbling block. Think of Thomas Edison and his thousands of attempts to find the right filament for a light bulb. And that's a great example, because he could have quit after any one of those thousands of efforts. Each time it didn't work, he knew he was one step closer to finding something that would. So embracing trial and error, it's kind of like the crucible in which true progress is forged. But you know what? And I'm a victim of this too. Too many of us in this gotta have it right now world don't have the patience or the perseverance to make that work. Right? So I mentioned new business startups where the mantra fail fast, fail often drives their innovation and allows them to become not a new business, but a sustained business, maybe a big business. It's in this little domain of entrepreneurship where the chaos of creation is totally embraced. Each collapse, man, a lesson in disguise. And it never urges retreat, but rather kind of a smarter advance. This didn't work. Let's go sideways. Let's try this. It's a simple mindset thing, right? That transforms the very fabric of how we approach our problems and our challenges, right? It turns like debilitating adversity into a playground of potential. If we have the patience, we can do this. And we've got to know a few things like the stuff we're talking about here today. Okay, so here's a couple of practical everyday steps on how to do that. I keep a failure diary. I jot down my daily setbacks and more importantly, the things I learned from them. My most recent example is I've fallen in love with these battery-powered tools, right? Battery-powered everything now. Lawnmowers, chainsaws, leaf blowers, hedge trimmers, weed whackers, everything. And so getting into this new battery thing, I wasn't sure I wanted to dive into the deep end. So I tended to buy the cheapest stuff that was out there, right? And over time, I realized that I had nothing that I could use to swap out with, right? I had a DeWalt this and a Ryobi that and a Milwaukee Tools this, and the batteries and the battery chargers. I was building my own unnecessary complexity, right? And so I kind of tracked this through my failure diary, right? This battery doesn't work anymore. The new batteries are $110. Geez, the whole tool was only 160. What did I get myself into here? Slowly but surely, I've swapped them all out. I have one company now. I won't bother telling you what it is. The batteries are all basically the same. They use the same charger. So following the old example that 1 is none and 2 is 1, right? When 1 fails, you have nothing. But if you've got 2 of something and 1 fails, you got 1 of them. I learned that from my failure diary. Number 2, in the same book, I keep a challenge journal, right? I jot down small challenges that I face and how I addressed it, didn't address it. Sometimes it's procrastination. Sometimes it's, moving too fast on something. And what I'm trying to do with those, though, is get an idea of where my personal comfort zone is. My personal comfort zone with challenges is to delay addressing them. Right? So I move myself out of that because I start to recognize a trend that I can improve. And so the third thing on this is to just basically learn new stuff, right? It's not just a challenge journal that drives me into a little bit more research on this or that, but I try to spend at least a couple of hours a week exploring a subject or a skill unrelated to anything I'm doing, but they always end up related to stuff I'm doing. Right? The more you learn, the more you start to see the interconnectedness of everything, and that just kind of builds a growth mindset that may or may not be connected to your job, but certainly over time, as you become more comfortable with everything, you become more capable of anything, right? So let's go down to our third section here in a second, where we're going to talk about how we can sort of forge this whole concept of managing the boundaries between order and chaos in the crucible fire of everyday life. And we're going to do all of that in 60 seconds right after a word from our sponsor.
Have you ever finished the latest bestseller on habits or personal performance and asked, yeah, okay, but how? All the improvements you visualize while reading the books require one thing to achieve in your own life: deliberate practice, a new way of focusing attention inside the routine to drive consistent improvement with every experience. Focused on getting the biggest impact from your career development opportunities, the Deliberate Practice of Professionalism course from Convergent Performance teaches you the steps and requirements to achieve improvement and mastery of your targets. Discover how deliberate practice can springboard your improvement efforts, no matter what they might be or your current skill level. Join us on our website at convergentperformance.com and click the link for e-learning to sign up for this exciting program today.
Welcome back. Third section of 4, let your greatness be forged by fire. So, like I said, life is kind of like a furnace that provides us with the heat we need to shape ourselves, right? Challenges in which resilience and resolve are tempered. If you think of examples like the Navy SEALs Hell Week, right? Infamous Hell Week. Keep them awake damn near the whole week. Give them these ridiculously difficult physical and mental challenges and tell them all you got to do is ring the bell and you can walk away. You can be in a soft bed with a beer or a hot cup of coffee, big meal. All you got to do is ring the bell and walk away. But if you want to be one of us, right, you've got to last the whole week. These are grueling trials, and it's not hazing, right? They're designed to develop an unshakable mental fortitude, right? Preparing the world's most elite warriors to kind of thrive in the maelstrom, the vortex, whatever other word you want to use, of chaos of the moment. Right? In the civilian arena, I think this translates into actively seeking challenges rather than shying away from them. And maybe incrementally increase our exposure to stress in a controlled manner, right? To bolster our psychological and emotional readiness. And I call this the practice of voluntary hardship. Voluntary hardship, where you kind of bring it on yourself in a controlled situation, and it can prime us, just like the Navy SEALs, to thrive in tough situations. So, what's a couple of steps we can use to accomplish that? First one I just mentioned, stress inoculation. Gradually expose yourself to stressful yet manageable situations, voluntary hardships, to build mental toughness. Could be anything. Public speaking, high intensity workouts, meeting every deadline on time, whatever it is that stresses you, expose yourself to it in measure, gradually increasing over time. Number 2, have a mantra, right? A resilience and resolve mantra. It's a saying, right, that reminds you of your strength and ability to overcome challenges. And it'll take your mind temporarily off the exact craziness that's going on, right? Something as simple as, hey, this is what I've been preparing for, or here it is, I'm ready. Just something that will act as a memory aid to tell you, hey, this is going to be okay. You're going to work through this, right? Number 3, build a support squad. What does that mean? It means that as you're going through all this and intentionally stressing and stretching yourself, establish kind of a go-to group of close friends or family members who you can rely on for support, who knows what you're doing, right? So that when the going gets tough and you're tempted to lash out or make a quick decision when you shouldn't, you can sit down and have a discussion with somebody to reinforce your emotional intelligence about yourself. So build a support squad, number 3. And then number 4, which is kind of all encompassing of all this stuff, be able to find order within chaos, or at least at the border between chaos and stability. We keep talking about the storms and changes of modern life. And to be able to maintain some sort of inner sanctum of self-control is really, really important, right? That's why we have things like checklists and task cards and memory aids. It allows us to step back from the chaos and the action and go to something solid. It's also the time when we can sort of observe our wild thoughts and emotions without getting swept away by them, right? We've got a checklist here in front of us. We know we at least have to do these 3 things, right? And this will give you a few moments of clarity that'll cut through the chaos in the moment. And it gives you a little bit of peace. And it also provides you the return to the chaotic environment with a razor sharp focus. Might be the daily skirmish in a boardroom or living room or on a flight deck or the maintenance hangar, right? Cultivating this skill, the ability to find some order temporarily within chaos, can really make all the difference and create a state of heightened awareness and precision when it really matters. So a couple of things we can do to sort of foster this. Don't be afraid to take a time out. When you're overwhelmed, give yourself a chaos timeout. Step away for a minute. Take a walk. Throw a stick with your dog. Grab a cup of coffee. Just a step away from it to give your physiology a chance to regain your composure. Here's an interesting one. It's called sensory grounding. Sensory grounding. Sensory grounding techniques take your mind off the internal dialogue during moments of high stress. You're all caught up in your head about everything, right? And what you do is you intentionally engage all 5 senses. Stop and start by looking at things of different colors, right? There's an orange knife on a red book and a yellow book in front of a transparent water bottle on a black desk. What am I doing? I'm getting out of my own head, right? But that's just my sight. Touch things of different textures. I've got a smooth notebook here and a slimy, wet Burger King cup over here. Smell and taste something. Listen for small, discrete sounds. This sounds really goofy, but it'll get you out of your own head for a few minutes. And sometimes that's all you need. Finally, step 3, kind of a catch-all. It's this whole concept of taking a few minutes to practice daily mindfulness. Maybe it's some type of meditation you enjoy, or just staring at the sky, watching the leaves blow in the wind, whatever it is, but something where you just let go and observe and relax. So to kind of bring us to some sort of conclusion here today, as we wrap up this short series, 2-part series on order and chaos, I think one message is crystal clear. Mastering chaos is not about taming the storm, but it's becoming one inside of it, right? It's about finding the rhythm in the random part of the world, learning in the lunacy, seeing each moment of disarray as an opportunity for us to impart some sort of order, or at least ride along far enough where we can impart some sort of order to achieve our own goals. I think, we've talked a few about legends of history, right? Innovators of today. None of those people shied away from change or tumult, right? They embraced it. They saw in the chaos something that allowed them to take and leverage strokes of the masterpiece, right? Waiting to be painted. I know I'm changing a lot of metaphors here today. As we move forward from this discussion, I'd like you to carry this lesson with you. Don't merely get through the chaos. Don't merely navigate it. Like General Gray said in our last podcast, shape it. Learn to love it. Swim in it like a fish. So I guess that's a wrap on episode 25, and I want to thank you again for joining me on this short journey through the art of living, thriving, surviving in chaos, or at least right up against the edge of it. And as we part ways today, remember, as we go through life, it's a lot of these threads of turmoil around us that will add the power, the depth, the color to the situation that we can then begin to paint our own picture with. So until next time, keep challenging the chaos, keep evolving within it, and please keep redefining the very limits of what it means to be human, especially you. See you soon.